There's something you've been putting off, not because you don't care, not because you're undisciplined, but every time you sit down to start, something in you quietly pulls back. And the worst part, you can't explain it. You know what it looks like from the outside, scrolling when you should be working, sleeping when you meant to study, reorganizing your desk instead of opening the document. People call it laziness. You've probably called it that too. But here's what laziness actually feels like. You don't care. You feel nothing. You have no desire to do it. That's not what you feel, is it? What you feel is something heavier. A kind of friction. Like there's an invisible force between you and the task. Not boredom, not tiredness, something more personal. Maybe the task is connected to something you're afraid to find out about yourself. Maybe finishing it means you'll be judged. Maybe starting it means admitting it matters to you. And if you try and fail, that says something you're not ready to hear. This is the part nobody talks about. The project you keep postponing isn't just a project. It's a mirror. And some part of your brain, the part that's been protecting you your whole life, doesn't want you to look. So it stalls. It distracts. It finds 17 other things that suddenly feel urgent. And then you look at the clock at 11 p.m. and you feel that familiar wave. Not laziness. Shame.
That feeling is important, because shame is not what lazy people feel. Lazy people feel fine. You don't feel fine, which means the problem was never effort. It was always emotion. Before we go further, I want you to sit with something. What you've been calling laziness is actually a highly intelligent response. Your nervous system learned at some point that certain kinds of effort lead to certain kinds of pain. Trying hard and being told it wasn't good enough, finishing something and feeling exposed, succeeding and then not knowing who you are anymore. The avoidance isn't weakness, it's a learned protection strategy. When a task carries enough psychological weight, enough threat to your identity, your sense of worth, your brain doesn't ask for your permission to retreat. It just does. And here's the thing about intelligence systems. They don't stop doing what works. The avoidance works. It removes the uncomfortable feeling. In the short term, it actually feels like relief. That's not a character flaw. That's your brain following a rule it wrote a long time ago. Avoid the task. Reduce the anxiety. You are not broken. You are running a very old program that was written to keep you safe, just in a context where safety is no longer the problem. Let's talk about what's actually happening inside you. There are two systems in your brain that are always in conversation with each other. The first is your prefrontal cortex, the part that plans, reasons, and sets goals. It knows what you need to do. It made the to-do list. It means well. The second is your limbic system, the emotional center, the ancient part. It doesn't think in logic. It thinks in threat and safety. Here's a way to picture it. Your prefrontal cortex is a calm project manager, organized, ready to work, folder open on the desk. And your limbic system is a very large, very scared animal sitting directly in front of the door you're trying to open. The project manager cannot get through until the animal feels safe. This is why willpower fails. Willpower is a thinking tool, but avoidance is an emotional response. You cannot think your way out of an emotional loop. You have to speak to the emotion directly, or the animal simply doesn't move. There's something researchers call task aversiveness, and tasks don't become aversive based on how difficult they are. They become aversive based on how much emotional weight we've attached to them. A 5-minute email can feel impossible if it's tied to a fear of rejection. A 2-hour project can feel effortless if it carries no threat at all. The difficulty was never really about time. It was always about what the task means to you. So how do you actually work with this? Not against it, with it. The first thing, name the emotion underneath the avoidance. Before you try to push through, ask yourself one question. What am I afraid this task will reveal about me? Not why am I procrastinating? That question keeps you in your head. Ask what you're afraid of. This works because of something called affect labeling. Research out of UCLA found that when you name an emotion precisely, activity in the amygdala, your brain's threat center, actually decreases. You are literally calming your nervous system by giving the feeling a word. Say you've been avoiding sending a creative piece to someone you respect. Instead of pushing yourself to just do it, you stop and ask, what am I afraid this will reveal? And maybe the answer is that I'm not as talented as they expect. Just naming that, out loud, or on paper, lowers the signal.
The animal shifts a little. The second thing, shrink the task until it carries no emotional weight. This isn't about making things easier. It's about removing the threat signal. Your brain avoids the task because it has become symbolic. So you break it down until it stops being symbolic and becomes just a physical action. Not write the chapter, open the document and write one sentence. Not have the difficult conversation. Send one message that says, "Can we talk sometime this week?" That's it. That's the whole task. Once you begin, something shifts. There's a principle in behavioral psychology called the Zeigarnik effect. Your brain naturally wants to complete things it has started. Open the loop, and the nervous system recalibrates. The animal gets curious. The third thing, separate your self-worth from the outcome. Most emotional avoidance lives here. Psychologists call it contingent self-worth, the belief that your value as a person depends on how this goes. If the project fails, I'm a failure. If the email is wrong, I'm inadequate. If I don't finish, I'm exactly what I feared I was. When self-worth is on the line, the brain doesn't treat the task as a task, it treats it as a survival threat. The practice is simple, even if it doesn't feel simple. Before you begin, say quietly to yourself, "This is something I'm doing. It is not something I am." Do it repeatedly. The neural association changes slowly, but it changes. The fourth thing, reward the attempt, not the result. Your brain learns through reinforcement. If the only signal of success is finishing, or finishing perfectly, your brain encodes the entire process as something to avoid. But when you pause after a difficult session and acknowledge, "I showed up today, even though it was hard," you begin to change what the experience means. Not because the work was perfect, because you stayed when part of you wanted to disappear. That acknowledgement is not small. It is, neurologically, exactly how new patterns are built. Here is the one thing to carry with you. Avoidance is not laziness. It is your nervous system protecting you from a threat it learned to recognize long before you understood it. The way through is not more force. It is name the emotion, shrink the task, separate your worth from the outcome, reward the attempt. Every time you do this, you are not just finishing something, you are teaching your brain that this door is safe to walk through. And slowly, quietly, the animal moves. You've spent a long time calling yourself lazy. I want to offer you something in place of that word. You were never lazy.
You were carrying something emotional that the world kept telling you to push past, and you couldn't, because that is not how humans work. We don't push past emotions. We move through them, slowly, with understanding and a little patience. The thing you've been avoiding is still there. It will wait. And when you're ready, not perfect, not fearless, just ready, you'll know what to do. Not because you finally forced yourself, but because you understood, for the first time, what was actually in the way.